Hey Dad, I thought you might be either bored or in need of a distraction. So in the event that this is more than at least slightly above boring, I'm going to put this piece of fascia on and just show you my process. Because I know in an ideal world you'd love to be here helping me with this, but things are what they are. So this is the existing roof framing, these pieces here. This is the existing roof sheathing. And then this is just a piece of block because I put 2 inches of foam here. I covered the whole roof in 2 inches of foam. And then this is the new sheathing for the nailer for the roof. As you can see, I don't know if you can tell in the video or not, but like there's a significant taper. It bulges here and it tapers down there. To be honest, I don't know why, and at this point I don't really care. I'm just working with it. So I've made everything as close to square as I can in spite of that. And the roof will just be the roof. But as far as the reveal here underneath, this will all be about the same. And for some reason this is hugged up here compared to there, where it goes out. So I'm having to fudge it a little bit, but it's the nature of this thing, I think I didn't jack it completely level. So I've got like some buckling happening that transferred up to the roof plane. Anyway, it is what it is. So I put these nailers in just so I have good stuff to nail to. This didn't come out that great, but it's gonna be fine. And I also realized that I was hasty trying to get to dinner and I need to actually nip this. So what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna put the fascia on, and then I'm gonna put the shadow board on, and then I'm gonna mark it from there, and I'm gonna use my little multi-tool and just nip this corner off just a little bit, which I think will be fine. I'll be able to, with sandpaper, make it look okay. So we have our piece. What was amazing is this is a piece of scrap from, see, this color was the post office, and so I just sanded it to take some of this off and give it some tooth, and then put 1 coat of primer on. Normally I'd do 2 coats of primer, but I ran out of primer and I need to get it up here, so I'll just paint it in place and it'll be fine. What was amazing is that it had a 45 on this end, but I needed it to be on this end because this is the bottom, and it ended up being exactly the length. Once I put the 45 here for the miter, I measured, it was 56 3/4. This is literally right where the bottom of the other 45 was. Like, it worked out somehow perfectly just in the scrap. So there's no room for error, but it's great. So what I do is I've got a bunch of these salvage trim head screws, they're little stainless screws. So I like to mock it up ahead of time, make sure everything's gonna fit before I glue the joint and all that. I had to notch this out a little bit because this isn't totally flush with here, so whatever. You never see that, you'll see this, so I'm gonna keep this tight. And I'm just gonna start a screw. Doesn't really matter, I'm just gonna kind of go center so that that's started. And then I've got little 1/2-inch plywood gauge blocks for the reveal. And I realized that my reveal down here is a little, I don't know if you can see that, but I've got like a light 16th. So I'm gonna copy that down here, show a light 16th of that, which will be fine. That's about right. Now I'm just gonna, there, tack it up there. I'm tacking up here because my shadow board is going to cover that, so it just doesn't matter. This will just get filled in with a strip, which is what I did over here too. You can see that. So the amazing thing is, like when I go over to the miter joint, it's like pretty much dead on. Somehow that moved on me a little bit up and down, but I know that when I go to do this, I'll work this miter joint first, and that will either be tight or it'll be just a little bit loose, I think. But obviously we'll work this first. and then we'll hit the shadow board and everything. So I know I'm good. I know I'm gonna fit. My reveal's gonna be fine down here. So pull it off. Just gonna leave this screw in here, so I have a little helper screw if I need it. Gauge block at the ready here. Oh, almost forgot. I gotta prime this end. This is exposed edge. So the end of the can of primer. Hopefully you're asleep by now. This is boring enough. But just prime the end. Give it a little primer. Seal the capillary so that doesn't crack and create a place for rot to set in. I do this right before I install because, sorry, compressor's going off. I'm borrowing a gun from Reggie, which is awesome, but it does leak a little bit, so that thing kicks on every once in a while. And then it's a product by Loctite PL, premium construction adhesive. This seems to be the best stuff going for almost any joint, but particularly exterior ones. Because wood glue, even though wood glue can be exterior rated, it doesn't quite hold up the same way as this stuff does. And this is paintable too and everything, which is good. So I usually just keep some little sticks on me when I'm doing this work, just butter up the joint. So, as you taught me, butter both sides of the joint. Make sure those capillaries soak in everything they need. And a very thin layer. This stuff goes on pretty thick, and it will squeeze out, which is fine, but you can obviously you can overglue the joint. I can't remember exactly where it stops, so I'm just kind of going a little bit further. Which will be fine. That's that one. Pull a piece down. Butter this one up. This piece has a sort of weird cup to it, but I think, you know, you only have to make the exposed part of the joint good. So as long as you can get, I guess in my case, as long as I can get 3 3/4 exposed good, then the rest of the joint can look like shit and it doesn't matter. It's hidden by the shadow board. It just needs to, you know, needs to stick together and everything, but it doesn't have to look like anything special. So I'll just be focusing on that lower part. All right, and this is also a pressure sensitive adhesive, so it doesn't really do its bonding until you put it under pressure. Pretty typical, but. And then I did, you know, I primed the inside too, because that's obviously going to be the reveal. But this has already got a stain on it, so it's protected enough. All right. I'm actually gonna grab the nail gun for the next part, because this is what Reg taught me, which I don't know if it's universal or not, but basically you bring the piece where it needs to be, pretty much. You let your joint be a little over. So my new piece is just a little past that joint, which is fine. It's actually kind of good. I'm just going to hold it with my head. Check this one more time. I'm going to take a shot back here. That's just going to hold it there. And because it's a nail instead of a screw, I can push it and pull it. I'm not going to set it yet. It's actually went a little deeper than I wanted to. but it's not set into the wood yet. So I still can push this way and that if I need to. So Reg has always told me, nail back here, that holds the piece where you think you want it. Then you can work the joint. If you need to push it this way, you can. If you need to pull it out, you can. Get the joint pin and then nail it off. So this'll happen afterwards. So now I'm going to check my joint again. Check my reveal down here. That's still good. I'm going to go ahead and make just a little tick mark there, so I know where that needs to line up with this, so I don't have to keep using my gauge block. I'm just going to focus on this guy down here. That looks pretty damn good. This is my battery-powered finish nailer. I do not have exterior rated brads for it, but I've got little, I think these are 1-inch 16 gauge brads. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just squeeze a little of that glue into the holes so they don't bleed out through the wood, and then they'll get primed and filled and stuff. So I'm going to focus on my bottom here. I'm going to start, take one shot. That looks pretty good. It's pinned, but it's not really that brad's not really tightening it up like I want. There's just a little hairline crack. So I'm going to do another one for alignment. Now I'm going to screw the joint. Because I think that'll go a little bit nicer. Actually, I bet I can nail it. It'll be okay because of where I'm at. So I'm going to put one nail in. I'm going to try to get into the joint a little bit. And then just send that home. Tighten right up. And just tap it down a little bit for flush. I'm going to take another nail into the joint, but I'm going to angle it down just a little bit to just put some pressure on, just to make sure I stay flush there. Perfect. That's great, actually. That is way better than I thought this was going to go, which is awesome. I love that. Got some glue squeezing out. I'm going to do one more to avoid cupping, but I'm going to come from the other side. And then, for good measure, no one will ever see that one, but it'll help hold that whole business together. I'm going to check with my gauge block along here, make sure I'm relatively good. Drop one, I'll just grab another. Got a little bow diddly to it, so I'm gonna just work it a little bit. It's such a short piece, I can't work it a lot. But I think what I can do is send this down a little bit. Oh, actually, I've got a screw. I've got my helper screw, so. And then I'm just gonna see if I'll be able to push this up. It'll be close enough, but I feel comfortable nailing that. I'm going to leave that screw right there. And, well, I just remember I forgot something. So I'm going to admit it to you, but it doesn't really matter. It's just like that little bit of extra. I did it on that side for the long run, but I usually like to glue the soffit edge to the back of this. But basically, because I was doing this video not thinking through all the steps, I missed that step. But ideally, that's what I do, and that holds these together good. But I am going to nail them together, but that keeps them from separating over time and backing the nails out. So I'm going to try to follow my nailing pattern that I've got in the soffit. Sink all these. Those nails don't matter, they're just in terms of the pattern. Angling my nail slightly upward so I don't have it dive out. Sometimes it will dive because it'll hit the nail inside or something like that. Oh, got a smiley face on that one. Well, and now I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to reef up on this thing as much as I can. Yeah, it's coming into submission. I'm going to try to get this where the other one's going to cover it. Nail the bejesus belt out of it. That's pretty close, pretty good. Let's do a couple more up here, hold it, and that should be fine. Put one more into the soffit. Since we didn't glue it, I want to make sure it's nailed off good. But this is a pretty tight nailing pattern, it just happens to be splitting the difference between the 16 on center and the 2 foot on center that the original rafters were, so. Nice and tight, looks good. The reveal transfers to the other side. We'll need to do some caulking on the soffit, but it's not bad, actually. And only thing else I got to do is grab an alcohol rag, clean up my joint, and that's the fascia. So this glue cleans up with alcohol, and that is the nice thing about wood glue is it does clean up with water, which is sweet. But this alcohol doesn't even really clean it; it just kind of smears it out of the way, so you can kind of pick it up off of the surface and transfer it. It's not true like solvent of the glue, but it works pretty well. Also, the alcohol helps take up any smiley faces that I have. So I'm just gonna wet the rag. Just wipe the joint. Not trying to get alcohol in the joint because that could mess up the glue. Just trying to wipe it on the outside, clean it up a little bit. I gotta say that joint looks really good. It's gonna be real nice. Anyway, if it's tonight, I hope you're having a good night and this was a distraction. If it's tomorrow, I hope the procedure went well and now you're just bored. Love you, Dad.